What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, as most of you guys know, we are freshening up some axles for my FJ40 Land Cruiser build. So a couple weeks ago, we went through the front axle, which is a Dana 60 out of a Super Duty. We completely rebuilt this thing with a locker, 538 gears, the whole works. We got this thing painted up, looking brand new. Now we got to tackle the rear. The rear is out of the same truck. It's a Sterling 10.5 inch. Now this thing is rusty and crusty and worn out. So we got just like the front, we got a new locker, 538 gears, all new wheel bearings, all new brakes, rotors, calipers, everything. This thing is going to be a brand new axle when we're done with it. So first things first, what I want to get done is I want to completely strip it down, pull the carrier out, pull the axle shafts out, get it down to a bare housing, and then I want to pull this truss off because, like the front axle, I want to paint the inside of the truss. And I also want to sandblast underneath the truss on the axle and get all that rust taken care of. I do have a little pressure pot sandblaster from Harbor Freight. I have tried it out just a little bit on the frame. It seemed to work okay. I did source some other sand that's a lot finer. The stuff I originally bought was way too big, and it wouldn't even go through the tip. It just immediately clogged it. So I got some more sand. I actually bought a better gun setup or a tip setup that's supposed to be a lot better for these. So we're going to try all that out, but first we got to rip this thing apart, and then we're going to completely sandblast it like I said, and then we got to put it back together, weld in the truss, weld in the shock mounts, weld in the link mounts, get this thing fully welded, and then we can start with our gears and our locker. Well, I gotta say that Sandblaster is a huge time saver, and it's gonna change kind of the way I do things around here. So this thing, like I said, was completely rusted, and with about 25 bucks worth of sand, I used 2 bags at about 12 bucks a piece. We got the whole axle, the whole truss. Now I didn't completely get all the mill scale off. I just kind of roughed it up. I did all the sides just because it was coming off really easy, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. But we got that, and then we got these. I still am going to throw those in the cabinet just because I want the profile that the 100 grit oxide, aluminum oxide, gives you for Cerakote. So those are going to get Cerakoted along with the new diff cover. So we're going to blast that, and then we got to do something. I'm not sure what we're doing with just these end caps for these axles, and then these hubs are probably going to be Cerakote as well, but they are filthy, full of oil obviously, and we got to punch out the bearing races, get those cleaned up, and get those blasted. So that's the game plan. I'm kind of going to go back and forth between welding this truss into the axle, cleaning those, sandblasting that. So let's get the truss back on. We can start welding stuff in. Like I said, we got to weld all this. The link brackets, all that has got to be welded in, and then we can start getting ready for some paint and Cerakote. Well, this axle is basically all welded in. Now we need to tie in the truss to the center section. This center section is a cast. I do know that we need to preheat it. So we're gonna use, just like we did on the front axle, we're gonna take our weed burner, get this entire center section up to about 400, 500 degrees. And then we're going to use our nickel rod on the arc welder. Just like the front, I'm not too concerned with completely welding around the entire center section on this truss. I'm just gonna get a few main areas stitch welded in. That is gonna be plenty to hold and stiffen this thing up. And then we're gonna wrap this thing up in our welding blanket and put every towel I got in the shop. We wanna make this axle cool as slow as we possibly can. That will help not crack any welds on cool down. The two metals cool at different rates, so when the cast iron has so much more meat to it and it's obviously a different material, it cools a lot slower than the mild steel. That causes cracking, so that's why we want to wrap it up as much as we can, get this thing to cool off as slow as we can. That'll help us have a successful weld. Well, we got this whole axle in our epoxy primer. While we're waiting for that to kind of set up, we're gonna jump into some Cerakote. We got our axles and some hardware to do right now. Like I said previously, you guys have heard me talk about Cerakote and how versatile it is. Now this stuff, like I said, it's so thin, you can paint bolts with it, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Instead of going out and buying new bolts, I figured it's just a sandblast, a real quick sandblast, and a quick splash of Cerakote. These bolts look brand new. So the reason we're doing black on these, I would do an accent color, but these axle shafts are not going to fit in my oven to bake, and the only air cure I have is black. We still are gonna do the diff cover and like the backing plates. I haven't decided on hubs. I think I might actually do the hubs black as well. I think that'll flow together with the gray backing plate, the gray diff cover, and then everything else black. I think that'll go good together. So let's do that. Let's grab the hubs, sandblast those real quick. We'll sandblast these bolts, and then we'll grab some of that black air cure Cerakote and get spraying. Now, if you guys want to check any of the Cerakote out, you can check it out at Cerakote.com. Like I said, this is their air cure. They also have an oven cure, which is a 2-part Cerakote. You mix the hardener into the Cerakote, you spray it, and it cures in the oven in about 2.5 hours, I believe, 2 or 2.5 hours. This air cure does take about 5 days to fully cure, but on bigger stuff where you can't fit it in the oven, it's amazing for that. Well, there we go. We got everything done except the other like backing plate. I actually ran out of Cerakote, so we're gonna have to get the other one in a couple days when we get our Cerakote in. But either way, this stuff turned out looking sweet. I really love this color. Tungsten, it goes great with black. I think it's really gonna look good. And bolts looking good. These things look brand new. And this coating is actually pretty strong. I mean, yes, it'll scratch when you tighten these bolts, especially if you use like an impact gun. You'll scratch it, but it won't just fall off like a spray paint will. And then hubs, like I said, this coating is perfect for this. I didn't have to mask off these lug studs. The lug nuts are going to thread onto those perfectly fine. And then here's the axle. Now this stuff is, I just got done spraying it like a couple hours ago, so it is a little bit tacky still. I'm gonna give this thing a couple days, maybe a day. Maybe I'll get out here tomorrow. It should be hard enough to where we can throw the axle onto the table over there and start working on gears. I did leave the pinion in, and I do have a new flange. I know you guys are gonna comment about that, leaving the flange rusty. I believe this is a 1410 joint, if I'm not mistaken. And my rear shaft is a 1350, so I bought a 1350 yoke. We got to throw on that. Well, that's about a wrap for this one, guys. Like I said, once we get in that bottle of Cerakote, we can finish up that other backing plate. And next video, we got to tackle installing all the gears and lockers into this thing and get this axle back together. I'm excited because this is the last piece of the puzzle before we get to throw the entire suspension onto the frame. So I'm looking forward to that. Nobody's seen this thing obviously, being painted, and we still haven't seen it without a cab on it, just to admire all the hard work we've done. So before we throw the cab on, like I said, I'm gonna throw all the suspension on, get this thing sitting on its own weight, wheels and tires, steering, everything on this frame, axle, suspension, all that. It should look sweet. I'm excited for that. And then we can start working on other stuff like body wise. We still got to wire the whole thing. I'm a little anxious to get this thing running. So we still haven't started this brand new engine up. So I'm a little anxious. I'm not sure what the game plan is, if I want to tackle like trying to get it running or kind of just start working on body work on the cab. But either way, we will figure that out when the time comes. Well, anyways, I'm out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Why don't you go smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.